This interesting thing when you actually think about who is shaping and reshaping this world are the investors. Investors as investing professionals, sourcing an entrepreneur, taking it to the investment committee, pushing their partners to invest are actually the gatekeepers. If you want to actually start building this better world, let's go and talk to each of these gatekeepers and say, you fucking become more conscious.
Welcome back, everybody. Rich Brubaker, Shanghai-based social entrepreneur, here today with Sagar from Moonshot Ventures. In Jakarta, he's been in Jakarta for the last couple months, really looking at what's going on here, and we just had a great conversation about impact investment, the myths, the realities, why more operators are needed in the space, and kind of what it's going to take for traditional VC to become more conscious and better investors in this space. So, a little bit about your background, what you do, and what you're doing here in Jakarta.
Cool. So I'm Sagar. I come from India. I was working with Grey Matters Capital for around 5.5 years on and off. And then I recently moved to Indonesia to work on something that we are trying to create, a venture studio and a venture fund called Moonshot Ventures. And we are looking at tech for good space. So we are looking at agriculture, education, healthcare, financial services, insurance, as well as from the lens of logistics, marketplaces. How can we build scalable tech companies and invest in that?
So how long have you been in the impact investment space, and in what markets around Asia?
So around 6 years on and off.
Okay.
6 years, and I have looked mainly India. Okay. Now I'm looking at Southeast Asia and Indonesia, mainly Indonesia at this moment. Yeah.
What is impact investment to you at this point? After 6 years, you read the books, you saw the TEDx, you bought the original thesis, but what is it, if you're to break it down, what are the things that you still hold on to after 6 years?
To me, I think impact investing is investing into entrepreneurs and businesses which at least have the right intent.
Yeah.
Right intent to create the right impact. Because if you have an intent, you'll always pivot to follow your intent, your belief. Otherwise, you just don't know what will be the unintended consequences. Yeah. So intent is something which differentiates between an impact investor and a normal VC.
Finding intentional entrepreneurs is a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
What's been your experience in identifying those individuals, and what are the markets that are the most interesting right now for you?
It's actually a tough question. So I think we were having this conversation around this. Sometimes labeling yourself as impact investor, what kind of people that you attract, sometimes it becomes really tough. But what I did personally was, whenever I was sourcing, I was talking to people, I was looking at companies, I was actually going out of the box, not only into the impact investing and the social impact circle. I was trying to go out and look for those people. Somehow it actually made me so happy that some people who are making these tech ventures, when I was having a conversation, they were trying to align directly, indirectly, even if I was not telling them I'm going to invest in you, they were thinking of creating a true impact for the beneficiaries, and it was reflecting. And whenever it was reflecting, even if they are calling themselves as social entrepreneurs or not, I was okay investing in them. So I was continuously looking at those people. I think they exist, but I think we need to do more education, we need to do more awareness, we need to do more conscious building with them, that you can create right impact, you can help your beneficiaries, you can help your customers, and you can still make money.
At what stage are you looking to invest into these entrepreneurs? And then how do you help them going forward from there?
I have personally spent a lot of time mainly seed investments, seed, pre-series A investments, and I also personally enjoy that rush of early stage venture building and venture seed investments. It's actually a very interesting question and tough question, because what I actually start realizing with impact investing also is it will take you to a point, but after that, as I was telling you, after Series A or Series B, I don't think so. There are many impact investors which even will invest in scalable tech companies. Maybe debt investments like Caspian in India or like Trio Bank in Europe will actually come and do some investments in you. But otherwise, if you start thinking about Silicon Valley tech startups, impact companies, it's very tough. So that's where I start aligning. You need to align with impact. You need to build them conscious. You need to do aware them, but you need to also prepare them for the scalable tech.
So in the way that I look at it, ideally, you would provide angel A, B, you'd participate, right?
Yeah.
And then that would lead to an organization that could then demand a much higher level traditional VC that might then take them into, say, an IPO or whatever.
Yep.
How do you see it? Like, should we have impact investors at every single stage, or is it the job of an impact investor to start early, get them ready for traditional VC? Like, how do you view that?
I will see that every traditional VC is also thinking from the impact inclination point of view. And to be honest, that's the way forward, because capital is capital for an entrepreneur. We need to do awareness building from the entrepreneur side, but we also should do awareness building from the VC side. We as impact investor right now, we have a very important thing to prove that this asset class is good enough for you to invest and later continuously invest. And if that happens, is some of these VCs start, why we are doing investments in consumer tech? Maybe we should invest in cutting edge insurance tech companies which solve problem for agriculture farmers. Why not? Like, you are using weather, satellite data, and these are cutting edge tech companies, and they can actually build scalable business models.
Do they have to be conscious? Do they have to be woke in a way? Or
VCs?
Yeah. Or is it just, look, the market's massive, and they'll just learn that the market's massive?
That's a tough question. They're already doing it. They're already doing investments in mass markets. They already start doing investments in agriculture, food businesses, healthcare, financial inclusion. And right now, if you see, who is investing into some of these financial inclusion, fintech, insurtech companies? Is VCs. And they are also telling that same impact story. There's a huge, who are unbanked, we will actually try to reach out to them.
But there was a long period where they were not participating. And now they are. What brought the shift?
The market is huge enough that they want to play an important role there. For them, from the economic lens, I think that makes sense. That's why they are doing it.
The shift to traditional venture capitalists from, let's just say, not supporting impact impact to supporting impact. Do they need to be good, or is it that the market is just, you can't ignore it?
The market you cannot ignore, but from the VC side, I'll say they also need to be educated. They need to be more conscious as, can you be an empathetic human being and do for-profit investing? And I think that's where we are going towards when we are saying that ESG framework needs to be applied. ESG investing will start becoming a thing. We have already fucked up this planet so much. This interesting thing when you actually think about who is shaping and reshaping this world are the investors. Investors, as investing professionals, sourcing an entrepreneur, taking it to the investment committee, pushing their partners to invest, are actually the gatekeepers. If you want to actually start building this better world, let's go and talk to each of these gatekeepers and say, you fucking become more conscious. You start thinking from the impact lens also. Okay, don't have those impact metrics, but at least think about, don't damage the communities that you are actually in.
You go to an AVPN conference. It's filled with people who are, we have money and we want to change the world. What's missing from that to actually executing on deals?
You ask yourself, if you talk to somebody who doesn't know anything about impact and not know a lot like us, if you ask them what is impact investing, what kind of company, they'll say, oh, you invest in shrimp farms or you invest in coconut farms. That's what people think about impact investing. Why any tech VC will
something
invest?
Small, something poverty alleviation, something.
So I think that's where we need to change the whole narrative to, we invest in scalable companies which can be tech, which can be blended, but they solve fundamental problem for the masses. If you don't do that, then I don't think so tech VCs will ever pick it up. And that's where I think slowly the shift has started coming, but I think as impact investors, we are far ahead. I'll say we need to make this asset class sexy enough so that a tech VC will take it.
What are the big trends that you see that are helping to move the mass market into a place where impact investment makes sense?
So actually, one thing, before even I jump to your question, I'll say why it has started working is also because now the tech infrastructure has improved a lot. If you actually start thinking from the point of view of that almost everybody is now having a smartphone, to internet penetration in Indonesia, if you see in India, it's the same thing, and across whole Southeast Asia, even in Africa. So now if the tech infrastructure exists, disseminating those services, the solutions to reach out to these people have become less and less in terms of barrier. So now if you start thinking about tech companies or impact tech companies and some of these impact entrepreneurs can actually reach out to them. The thing is, and I feel that's where the interesting piece is. For if you think about a poor person and see their everyday cash flow, out of whatever they have, how much they will invest in food, how much they invest in financial services, and most of them are towards where they need basic services. They don't want to invest in something which is consumer and luxury. And that's where, if you start thinking about an education can be disseminated at a large scale level at a really low cost, barrier to entry has reduced.
Yeah.
And the same thing with healthcare services maybe, and that's where telemedicine is now actually becoming a reality. People were saying how telemedicine will work, and we are seeing so many models across. So I think there's a possibility.
Talking a little bit about the entrepreneurs themselves, what do you see here that excites you right now?
I'm a big believer of diversity, and I feel the sectors get disrupted by people who are not from that same sector. That's my very strong thesis has been. I'll just take as an example, go back and look at all the scalable tech companies in US in financial services space, in fintech space and insurtech space. Almost none of the unicorns founders were coming from financial services.
Right.
You cannot disrupt a sector if you have too much of biases. But again, how you marry it. So this is a smart entrepreneur, but that entrepreneur actually bring another co-founder who comes from the sector expertise. But you need to have that pushback why things are happening this way.
Right.
And if that entrepreneur comes with that grit to actually solve that problem from a different perspective. So how you have those blend of competency, skill at the entrepreneur level, sometimes it really helps. I think it's that diversity is really important when I look at any entrepreneur to invest in.
Who's more likely to disrupt whom? The impact investor that disrupts the traditional VC, or the traditional VC that disrupts the impact investment community?
I think there is a lot to learn from VCs for impact investors, and why I say that is, and I think you will also agree, with VCs what interesting thing has happened is operators have turned into VCs. And impact investing, we are still living in that old age era of people coming from private equity or investment banking. There are very less operators. When you are not an operator, you don't think like an entrepreneur many times. It becomes a problem also when you think too much like an entrepreneur and you become an investor. That is also a problem, but it just helps to accelerate the entrepreneurial ecosystem. What kind of portfolio support that you provide to some of these impact tech entrepreneurs tomorrow. So I think we need to learn a lot from some of these tech VCs.
But if you're honest at this point, what has been kind of the success of the impact investment community so far? Like, how much success have they seen to date outside of the big omniers and those big investments?
So I'll say more from the anecdotal experience. What I'm seeing is, and that's the other side, VCs have started realizing, and good tech entrepreneurs who are turned VCs, you see in their statements they want to use the term tech for good, or they want to use the term mission driven, they want to use the term impact. At least even if it is verbial, I think it's coming up, and I think impact investors have played a very important role there. Now, somehow saying investments in agri-tech is something they want to do it also for impact, for many reasons. And they see as a mass market, so they will invest because they want to make financial returns for their LPs.
Where do you see this going forward? Say the next 5 years, how do you think impact investment either needs to shift or will shift in this region so that more entrepreneurs are able to gain access to the funds they need?
We need more fund managers who are more conscious, have an inclination towards impact, but understand the operator side, understand the technology side, understand the product side. If you have whole across the value chain for an entrepreneur, so seed investments, pre-series A, Series B, Series C, and prepare them for a scalable tech company. To be very frank, I don't think so tech VC is gonna eat the impact investors. I think there will be only one term, which will be investors, and every investor needs to be a conscious investor. And I think that's the sweet spot. I think what you said was very true about there was an heart, I want to create impact with impact investing, and that's how everything started. But now they start realizing there is a power of market-driven solutions to solve problems at scale, and infrastructures are ready. We as a society, I think we have achieved a lot. I think as impact investors now, it's very important that we are able to think like tech VCs, but able to add beyond a tech VC. And actually, it's not necessarily just our money, but we have that conversations with them all the time. And we need more people like you to be fund managers. To be very frank, I am whole fascinated by how can we bring more operators turn into impact investors. You call yourself an impact investor, you call yourself a mission-driven investors, but invest in core sector areas. Those Maslow hierarchy of needs which can be met for these mass market.
I mean, I'm laughing because my wife's like, he's so bad with money. Okay, so.
And one more thing that I'll say is, as impact investors, the pot is small, and I have seen you do a small grant, you're happy.
Yeah.
But I have seen most of the impact investors are not patient capital, and I'll tell you why. They actually think about doing debt investment, they think about revenue share. But sometimes when you think what Silicon Valley is Silicon Valley, because of those equity investments, because of that patient capital, you don't think about giving me back for 7-10 years. Right. You need that experimental money in impact investing at scale. Yeah. You need both. You need that money.
So wrapping up, if you're be talking to a traditional venture capitalist, what are 3 things you wish they knew so that they could get into this space?
Definitely, you guys have started looking at some of these sector areas like financial inclusion. I think is being covered by tech VCs. You guys pretty well. I think look at financial inclusion, look at agri, look at education, look at healthcare. These are really all important sector areas in terms of how much a mass market, somebody coming from mass market, use as a disposable income in some of these services. They live and breathe having these services. I think there can be scalable tech companies in that. So it's a good asset class for you to look at for sure. Look at also from the lens of, you are creating a stakeholder value for your LPs and doing investment. You also look for the same thing what we talk about in your businesses thing as customer centricity. So can you actually think from these beneficiaries, from these customers, and think from the point of view, don't damage their life. And if you do it well, if you think from that customer point to improve their life, I think we can create a better world together in that way.
Thank you very much.